Hello everyone, welcome to the King's Virtual Open House session. Today we have a great group of representatives here to tell us about the political science department here at King's. What we're going to do is we're going to have a brief presentation and introductions, and then afterwards we will have a chance for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions for any of these wonderful representatives, please feel free to drop them in the chat function and I will relay these questions later on to them. So without further ado, Dr. Aaron Hanna, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're very excited to meet you and we look forward to welcoming you at King's in the fall. I'm joined today with a number of esteemed colleagues and students who will assist me in introducing the political science program and answering all of your questions. I thought that the best thing that we could do to begin would be to introduce everyone. The first person that I would like to introduce is Claire Haas. She's our academic program advisor and our most valuable player on our team. She will be your very first point of contact and one of the biggest supporters of your educational journey at King's. Claire, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the students a little bit about the kinds of support and services that you provide?
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, everybody. As Aaron said, my name is Claire Haas, and I'm the Academic Program Advisor for Political Science. I often see students during drop-in hours when we're actually on campus. Right now I'm working virtually, so answering emails, King's callback, some various Zoom sessions. But really my main role in the program is to help students navigate their way through the module, telling them what they need to fulfill their modular requirements and degree requirements, what type of different degree combinations are available, helping with special permissions or course substitutions. So if generally in first year you have a general first year in arts or social science, and then you would declare political science in your second year, and then you would come see me and I can help you navigate through the rest of the way through your degree. So thanks for having me. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you, Claire. The next person I'd like to introduce is Professor John Grant. Professor Grant,
thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is John Grant, and I teach in the political science department. I teach on the first year course, Introduction to Political Science, and then in second year and beyond, I teach political theory. I do a course on the history of political thought, and then I do a number of third and fourth year courses that are all about 20th and 21st century problems in political theory. One course is called Freedom, Order, and Control, and it's all about different models of freedom that we might like to experience and how those are sometimes prevented from being put in place by various methods of social control and order. Another course I do is called Inequality and Violence, which looks at the different relationships between types of social inequality and then civic unrest and political violence. So all of my courses, even though they're political theory courses, have an awful lot to do with things that are going on in the real world and using political ideas to analyze what's going on around us. So I'm very glad that all of you could join us today, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your questions.
Thank you, Professor Grant. Professor Tiaku, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, of course. Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to link up with you. My name is Thomas Tiaku, and if you happen to come to King's, you will encounter me usually from the second year. If you're interested in courses related to the developing world, I am your person. I do a second year course. I teach a second year course called Developing Countries in International System. If you are also interested in diplomacy, interested in working for the government, I'm interested to represent Canada elsewhere in the world, I have a course that also helps you to do that. I have a third year course called International Law and International Organizations. So if you want to work for the UN, European Union, the African Union, and so on and so forth, as a diplomat, so that's all. And then for those of you who are also interested in just learning the act of negotiating, we know that every day our encounter constitutes 80% of it is about negotiation. So if you just want to know the tactics of negotiating with friends, family members, and in general in life, I call it the discount in life that you get. So you also I have a course, a fourth-year course that will help you, or that can help us navigate that particular process. And then we'll talk about the most exciting thing I do with my colleague, Dr. Hanna, is our experiential learning, where we'll take you to different parts of the world. We've gone to Paris, we've gone to Geneva, we've gone to Brussels, different African countries, Ethiopia, Ghana, and we are thinking about Tanzania. So if you want to go outside of the classroom and experience the real world, we offer that to you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Professor Laszlo Sarkany.
Good afternoon, everyone, and great to see everyone. I guess Professor Tieku, can I come? I mean, this sounds very exciting. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Laszlo, and my specialty is in international criminal justice. I studied the International Criminal Court, and I'm involved with an NGO that follows the work of the court as well. At the King's, I've had the wonderful pleasure of teaching a number of courses. At the second year level, the latest course was Human Rights and Artificial Intelligence, which is really exciting. And then, of course, I taught to the business and government as well. And then at the third and fourth year level, I tend to focus on international relations and my specialty, international criminal justice. So hope to see you at King's, and thank you so much for the welcome.
Thank you so much. For everyone, I'm Aaron Hanna. I'm the chair of the Department of Political Science. I'm an international political economist, and my areas of expertise are gender, trade, global governance, the role of expert knowledge in global trade. I teach international political economy. I teach the first year Introduction to Political Science course. And I teach a course on trade law and negotiation, where we learn the ins and the outs of the politics of international trade. And like Dr. Tieku mentioned, I have a wonderful collaborative partnership with him in our Experiential Learning program. Most recently, we offered a course called Global Governance from African Perspectives, and we traveled to Ethiopia for 10 days during Reading Week in February. A little later during our session, I'll show you some footage from that course, and we'll tell you about our upcoming course, which will take place in Tanzania next academic year. The next thing that I would like to do is introduce you to 4 students that we have who are currently enrolled in our program at different stages of our program. I would like each of them to tell us what their names are, what part of the program they're in, and why they selected political science as their degree at King's. David, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hanna. So my name's David Carlson. I am a recent graduate of the program. So just a couple of weeks ago, my program was marked as completed. So I'm now technically a graduate of the political science program. I thought that, thank you, Dr. Grant. The program was absolutely a fantastic experience. One of my favorite parts about it was that experiential learning component to it. A lot of my interest is in the relations between governments and then our own government as well. So I've had the opportunity to work on 2 different political campaigns throughout my degree, which has been a fantastic experience. And then also I had the opportunity to travel to Ethiopia in the course that Dr. Hanna was just speaking about.
Thank you, David. Zainab, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Zainab Al-Jaishi, and I am going into my 5th year in political science. I chose the program honestly because it was the one that spoke to me the most. I really wanted to be involved in government and law, and it just seemed like the right fit, and it has been the best decision I've made throughout my whole life. I also went to Ethiopia this past year with Dr. Hanna and Dr. Tieku, and it was an incredible experience. Would highly recommend, if you do come into the political science program, that you take an experiential learning trip, because they're just beyond words. They're amazing.
Thank you, Zainab. Jackson.
Hi, my name is Jackson Van Bakel. I just finished my 2nd year in political science at King's. I chose this program initially because the structure of the business program at Western through Ivy is a 2+2 program. So you can study any program you wish for your first 2 years. However, now that I'm reaching the end of my first 2 years, I'm questioning whether I want to leave King's, because it's been such an amazing experience over the past 2 years.
Thank you, Jackson. Ellie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Kozak. I'm also a recent graduate, just as of last week, I think. So I did a double major in social justice and peace studies, thank you, Dr. Grant, and political science. So I didn't switch into political science until my 3rd year. So I did my first 2 years strictly social justice and peace studies. And then I figured out that politics seemed like a really great way to make change in the world. So I shifted into that program and finished it and absolutely loved it. I've also been quite involved in experiential learning. I went to Italy the summer after my second year. I went to Arizona last year, and then I just came back from Ethiopia with these guys as well. So 10 out of 10 would recommend experiential learning if you're going to come to King's. The Social Justice and Peace Studies program is a really great complementary course as well. So if you're thinking of doing a double major, then I would also recommend that.
Thank you very much, Ellie. So I think, as everyone has heard, the experiential learning component of our program is something that helps set us apart from other political science programs across the Western system and certainly across the Canadian landscape. So when you come to King's Political Science, you get a fulsome degree. We cover all of the regular subfields in political science: political theory, comparative politics, international relations, Canadian politics. But I would say partly what's distinctive about our program is the hands-on, applied, and experiential components of our program. We often like to say that one of the learning outcomes of our program is for students to learn change-making advocacy, and they do this from the inside out. And as each of the students has suggested, we have both local and international experiential learning opportunities. So I wonder if we could invite the students to talk about their experience in the local experiential learning components of our program. Ellie, I know, so 2 examples of the local experiential learning opportunities are something called the Women in Civic Leadership Program, and another is called the Campaign School. So Ellie, would you like to talk about your experiences in the local experiential learning program?
Yeah, so in my 4th year, I enrolled in the Women in Civic Leadership Program, which is a full year course, and you are partnered up with different female leaders in the London community, and then put into groups with other students to achieve a project, whichever you set out at the beginning of the year. So for my group, we were carrying on the Changemaker Conference, which is an annual conference that's held every year for high school girls in London to come and learn about what it means to be a woman in politics and be a woman in leadership. So it was a lot of hands-on learning. We had to apply for grants. We had to book venue spaces, reach out to different politicians and leaders and get their attendance at our event. We had to coordinate with different high school girls, a lot of logistical planning, but also a lot of like, what is going to be the most beneficial for the attendees to learn. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we had to cancel the event because it was right at the end of March, so we barely missed it, but we have set up the next year for an incredible Changemaker Conference, and it's a really incredible course to get to meet a lot of really cool people that range in all different types of fields in London, and make a lot of really great networking opportunities.
Thank you, Ellie. David, would you like to talk about the Campaign School?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was able to be in the campaign school program twice. So when I was in my 3rd year, I was in the one that focused on the municipal elections. So with that one, everyone in the course, we applied to volunteer on various campaigns, from mayoral or city councilor. I was able to work on now the current mayor, Ed Holder's campaign, which is a fantastic experience. And the way that the course was structured is that it was an expectation that outside of class time, we would be volunteering in any sort of capacity that we were comfortable with and what the campaign needed from us. And then once a week, we would meet up somewhere in the city to discuss the challenges that we've been facing on our campaigns. And then we would also have a fantastic speaker from some form of political legitimacy around the city come and speak to us about their experiences getting into politics, which gave us a real, like a very practical real world perspective. And then it was coupled with the academic readings behind it to give us that theoretical foundation, which provided, I think, a really well-rounded experience.
Thank you very much, David. Would anyone else like to speak about the local experiential learning program? Okay. Something I'd like to highlight is that we have a heavy focus on research in the program in political science. And something that's very distinctive about our international experiential learning opportunities is the field research component. So students undertake a course for a full semester. They undertake research methods training in the context of the course. They get to decide what their research projects will be. They get to devise their research questions. They conduct all of the stages of research design from inception point all the way to field research. And this is something that's, again, very distinctive across the political science landscape at the undergraduate level. Most recently, as I mentioned, we traveled to Ethiopia, where students met with a range of people in Ethiopia. They met with people in very local contexts, and they met with high-level officials working in international organizations like the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, like the African Union. They met with officials working in national embassies. We met with people working with non-governmental organizations. So I'd like to invite the students, all of the students actually who are joining us today, traveled to Ethiopia and conducted original field research while we were there. So I think it would be interesting for prospective students to hear about the projects that each student developed and you know, what was very enlightening about the Ethiopia experience. Zainab, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like Dr. Hanna said, it's not normal that you kind of get to pick your research point and then do field research on it. So this was kind of something that I wasn't used to going into this course, and it like stumped me a little bit at the beginning, but then once I found the topic that I was really passionate about, which was the precarious work that women take up in Ethiopia, I like hit the ground running. It was amazing. I got to speak to people in the field. I got to speak with real life, like people whose real life experiences were in this. And it was just an incredible experience. I would say that it really gave me the foundation to conduct field research in the future, which is not something that a lot of undergraduate students get to do. And it also kind of helped me kind of forge what I want to do in the future, which is, again, really awesome for an undergraduate program, because you don't really get to have those real life courses where you kind of get to do things in country. And so that was really amazing for me. It really helped me decide what I wanted to do in the future.
Jackson, would you like to talk about your research project?
Yeah, for sure. So the Ethiopia course it was a third-year course this year. However, being in second year, I had no formal research methods training because that's also a third-year course. So I was a little bit overwhelmed thinking of joining the course. However, speaking with the professors and fellow colleagues who took the course, it ended up being the easiest decision of my life. But my research project focused on comparative analysis between Chinese investment policies and Western investment policies in Ethiopia, and the extent to which the Chinese development policies have disrupted Western influence on the continent. And so, like, some of the amazing opportunities that happened included when we were at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. We were going into a day full of meetings in a conference room. And then as we were walking into the building, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo of the United States was entering the building as well. And I checked Twitter later that day to see why he was there. And it was actually to be warning against African officials from Chinese investment. So like the idea that my little research project that I started in London turned into standing 20 feet away from Mike Pompeo, doing something to that extent is crazy. And I would have never thought of that being an opportunity that I would be able to do in just my second year. And it's really opened my eyes to furthering research and looking at graduate school opportunities.
Thank you, Jackson. Ellie, would you like to talk about your project?
Yeah. So my project focused on celebrity humanitarianism, which is essentially when non-governmental organizations use celebrities to endorse their international development campaign. So I wanted to focus specifically on how this is being done in Ethiopia, and what kind of impacts it's having on the communities there that they're trying to help. So like Jackson said, I think one of the most cool things is that your project can feel very minor and very small to yourself, like, oh, celebrity humanitarianism is something that I'm interested in, but I don't know if anybody else really cares about it. But then you get into these meetings and you ask these questions and you can see their faces light up when you ask something that they're interested in, and it makes you realize that the work that you're doing is incredibly important. And it's inspired me that I'm now enrolled in the master's program of political science at Western to continue this research, because I know that it's important and I know that it matters to people, and I'm really passionate about it. And this experience has given me the grounding to understand that I can do a lot more with this, and there's so many more questions to ask. And that's not something you can get unless you're in the field and understanding and seeing these people face to face.
Thank you. David?
Thank you. So my research focus was on the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed Ali's recent Nobel Peace Prize win for his role in ending the Ethiopian-Eritrean border conflict. But my paper didn't start with that question. It started with these really big ideas about the border that I found really puzzling. And then through the guidance of Dr. Hanna and Dr. Tieku, throughout my research process, they were able to help me really narrow down and find what the focus that I was really most interested in writing about. And throughout my undergrad degree, I've written dozens of papers, with some that I really enjoyed writing, some that I didn't really like writing. But because of how engaging I was, or the level of engagement that there was from the professors, and throughout the commitment that I had to give to this project, it ended up being one of my most favorite papers that I've actually ever written throughout my undergrad, which was a very cool experience to like thoroughly enjoy the entire process of writing this piece.
Thank you, David. Dr. Tieku, would you like to talk a bit about why you think such experiences are fundamental or life-changing?
Let me use it to just talk a little bit about, these experiences and the way they prepare our students for life after King's. One of the things that you would notice among all these, we just selected these students, but they are by no means the only outstanding student in the program. And if you look at the way they articulate, the way they, the sort of work that they are doing, in most cases, they are doing kind of graduate level work. So anywhere our students, in most cases, they will go, they excel. Ali has decided to go to Western doing master's there, and I have no doubt that next year from now, you will be having her master's degree. We just do it easily because he's so well prepared for that. Those who also decide that after King's, they just want to go into workspace, they have been introduced into different aspects of professional life. So one of the things that we are so big on is professionalism. And so I had you move away from Canada and into a space that's so different from your space, but still being able to maintain your professional standards. So going into workspace, you already gone through that life experience. And then the other thing also that helps a lot is the fact that it helps the student to imagine who they can become and what they want to do in life. So just like me, in some cases, many of our students come into the program not knowing exactly what they want to do and what they want to do with their life. Right? So experiences like these, they help you figure out exactly what you want to do with your life. And political science is so broad enough that gives you the chance to be able to do it. So just a small little thing that I'll add to it is the fact that for those of you who are thinking about going to grad school, apart from the fact that you are well trained and you get into the most favorite programs that you get, the good news about this is that most of our students will get money, will get funding, get sometimes some of the highest money that you can. And in most cases, you find a lot of schools, it's a very common practice to find a lot of schools just fighting over our students. So if you come, and we do it in such a way that we work with you on one-on-one. We identify your strength, we identify the areas that you need to work on, and then we work with you, right? So we know that this experience is very scary, coming from high school and others. And one thing that we do really well is the fact that we are so small. So we get to work with you on one-on-one basis that the challenges that you may be thinking, oh, I'm not too confident enough, can I do this? No, those things by the time first, second year, those things will be gone, and you'll be grounded, and you are sure to be ready for life after kids.
If I could add one thing, one of my favorite experiential learning courses was our Ghana course that we ran last May. So we took students to Ghana in West Africa, and we traced cocoa through global supply chains. And what we wanted to do was to start at the very bottom of the supply chain and travel all the way up to the top of the supply chain, in which case, in the case of Ghana, was the head of the Cocoa Marketing Board. And to start, what it meant was we undertook an 800-kilometer road trip across Western Ghana, and we started in the rainforest, and we lived and met with communities of people who were engaged in growing cocoa, and we learned about their everyday experiences, and we learned about the everyday experiences of international political economy. A lot of the students in that course were studying the gendered dimensions of global supply chains and so on. But as you can imagine, traipsing through the jungle in West Africa was a brand new experience for a lot of our students. And so I always like to highlight how resilience is a major part of what we're hoping to impart with students, a major thing that we hope students will learn and master before they leave our programs. And it's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is the resilience of our students, alongside their professionalism, alongside their leadership, alongside their research skills, is their tremendous resilience. Dr. Grant, would you like to talk about some of the things that you think are most distinctive about our program in political science?
Sure, I can add a couple of things. One of the best things about political science at King's is the fact that we combine a small department, but with a really wide range of course offerings, many of which have already been discussed. But one of the benefits of being in a small department like ours at King's is that the faculty members, both the full-time faculty and part-time faculty, always have their doors open and are really happy to work with students as regularly as students want to. And one of the beneficial things for you is that because we're a small department, we learn all your names. And so it's not like when you go to a big university, you're not one of 400 or one of 600 in your first and second year. In fact, right from first year and in second year, as David and Jackson and Ellie and Zainab will say, I learn all your names in the first couple of weeks of class, and I remember your names for 4 years. So when you're done your degree at the end of 4 years and you come to see me and say, Dr. Grant, can you write me a reference letter? It's not like I'm looking at you and I'm blinking my eyes thinking, who the heck is this person? I know exactly who you are. I've known who you are for 4 years, right? And I can sit down and talk to you about the job market or about graduate school or about law school. And so we really do provide an experience for students, which is one where they matter and where we know your names and where we consider our success to be dependent on your success. And when our students are succeeding, that we know we're succeeding as well.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. Dr. Sarkani, would you like to reflect on some of the things that you think are distinctive about our program?
Thank you so much, Dr. Hanna. I think my story is a little bit, I guess, similar to yours at King's, because I ended up graduating from St. Jerome's from the University of Waterloo, which is ultimately the King's equivalent at the University of Waterloo. And again, I think the very beneficial for me in particular aspect of studying at a liberal arts college was that, again, as Professor Grant mentioned, again, we are more, the faculty are more than willing to help the faculty, and you are able to develop personal relationships with the faculty as well. I think for me in particular, that was extremely important. And I think what we've heard from the students, that's also the case, because ultimately they're developing professional relationships with each of us. And therefore we're able to, again, mentor and help and so on. And of course, accompany the students on their educational journey. So that very, I would say very, very collegial, very, very, very close relationship. It was really important for me. And when I got to King's, it was like, well, it's like getting home again. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. So one of the themes I think today is leadership. And we've spoken a little bit about how students acquire leadership skills inside their courses. But I'd say something else that's remarkable about the political science experience is that a great number of our students are student leaders. I thought it would be interesting for each of the students to reflect upon their leadership journey since arriving at King's. David, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I'm from London, and so when I grew up in London, I was always very involved in theater. And one thing that's really cool about King's is that the student council, the King's University College Student Council, runs a theater company, which is a part of it, called King's Players. And I wanted to get involved with that in my first year. And in my second year, I was elected to be the vice president. And then in my third year, I served as the president. of the theater company, which was a fantastic leadership opportunity on King's campus. And in addition to that, I also was a member of the King's orientation team, so the SOFT team, for 3 years, where I finished being an orientation programming assistant, where I helped plan and facilitate the orientation program, which in a world without a pandemic is one of the largest and most fantastic orientation programs in Canada. And if you are planning on coming to King's this fall, I'm sure there will be some fantastic programming, be that different. And additionally, I also, along with Ellie, served on the University Student Council to represent King's students to Western students at large, where I chaired one of the standing committees to help set the broader legislative agendas of the USC.
Thank you, David. Jackson, do you want to tell us about your leadership experience?
Sure. So my biggest thing that I've been involved with at King's in particular is the King's Political Science Students Association. So I joined that as a member in my first year. We have a clubs week in September where every club on campus sets up a booth, and then you can go around and almost like a World Fair type event where you can go and see what clubs you're interested in. So I joined that one in my first year, and then at the end of every academic year are the elections for the executive for the next following academic year. And I remember I was extremely nervous. I prepared a speech on my phone, and I waddled over to Don Taylor Narden Hall to go for the elections. And of course, it went well. And since then, the past 2 years, I've been the Vice President of Communications for the King's Political Science Students Association. And so it's been an amazing experience. We've planned events such as an election night event at Joe Cool's in downtown London, which was a massive success. It was sold out. We had 100 people show up to watch the election back in October. We have stuff planned in the works for next year, but obviously there's a big question mark over all that, including a trip possibly to New York City or another election night event for the American election, all with asterisks right now. But I'm taking over from David and Ellie as the USC representative for King's at the USC, and then the USC representative on the King's University Student Council. So there's definitely lots of opportunities to get involved on campus. That was my biggest regret coming out of high school, is that I only played baseball at my high school. So I wanted to expand my experiences in university, and there's definitely opportunities to do so at King's.
Ellie, do you want to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, so I was super involved in high school, so I knew I wanted to be really involved at King's, and there was absolutely no shortage of opportunities for that. So in first year, I decided to kind of ease my way into it, and I was just a general member for the Social Justice and Peace Studies Club. In my second year, I was elected as president of that club. And then from there, I really found a passion for student politics. So I kind of dove right into the King's University Students Council. So I was the volunteer commissioner for a year. So I was in charge of planning the volunteer fairs so that students could get involved in wider London community. From there, I was hired as the executive assistant to the president. So I was kind of the right-hand man for the president of the organization. And that's a really cool role. You really get to see the behind the scenes stuff, and no one really knows you're there because you're kind of just like hidden in the office, but you really get to see everything and have a really big hand in how things are done. And then in my last year, I, like Jackson and David said, sat on main campus student council, and I chaired their advocacy standing committee. So I was kind of the last person to see all the advocacy policies before they went to council. And that's a really great way to create some change as well. One of the things that I don't talk about much, but I think is really important to mention, is you can get involved through campaigns a lot. So I managed 3 different campaigns during my time at King's. So those are student campaigns. And some people have said that the ones that you manage when you're at main campus are comparable to municipal ones because it's a really, really big campus and there's a lot of people you need to reach. So that kind of goes back to that practical part that we were talking about, that now I've managed 3 campaigns. I've kind of seen the ins and outs of student politics, and I'm sure they're not the same as real politics, but it's definitely given me a bit of a stepping stool to get there. And they're really, really fun to get involved in. So would recommend getting involved in campaigns if you come to King's.
Thank you. Zainab, do you want to tell us about your leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So in high school, I was kind of a shy kid. I didn't really join anything. I kind of just lurked in the background, but always kind of saw student council and really, really wanted to join, but never really had the confidence. But coming to King's, it was kind of just a new experience, and I thought, why not? So I started off as a orientation leader, which I continued on for 3 years, and it was really great. I got to welcome first years and kind of make bonds that you don't usually get to do unless you're in that position. Additionally, I also joined the King's Political Science Student Association in my second year as just a member, and then I was able to actually continue that and be a exec in my third year. I was communications, and then I took on as the rep for political science this year. I was really involved in the King's Student Council as well. This year I was actually lucky enough to be elected as the Vice President Student Affairs, which I'm really, really excited about. In that role, I kind of get to advocate for all the students and what they want and what they're really passionate about. So I'm really excited to take on that role. I think that, this has kind of just been a progression from someone who was too scared to join student council in high school to now being the vice president. You do kind of hear those stories, but not really often. And I think I need to emphasize that I wouldn't have gotten that confidence if it wasn't for this program. They really, really foster leadership, and I wouldn't have had the confidence at all if I hadn't had my profs and my peers to kind of encourage me.
Thank you very much, Zainab. Dr. Grant, do you want to reflect a bit on how these student leadership experiences prepare our students for life after King's?
Sure. So one of the practical things that students become more and more aware of as they proceed through their degree is how they're going to succeed afterward, what kind of job opportunities they're going to get, and so forth. And there are a number of really important skills that students learn through our program at King's. Obviously, research is one of them, that you learn how to access and analyze primary and secondary sources. You learn how to understand and manipulate quantitative data and qualitative data. But there are other really important things that will apply to any job sector. So all our students become better at written and verbal communication, and the ability to persuade people in an interview and in a job setting is going to be critical to every student's ability to succeed later in life. All of our students become autonomous thinkers. It means that they can construct and explain arguments in real time and think on their feet. And there's also a broader aspect to our degree, and that has to do with professionalism, that students become more self-disciplined. They learn about time management. We often have events where we bring in past graduates to talk about their careers. And so you can do things like network with them and create networks of people that you know for later on when you graduate. So it's even though the most important thing you're doing when you're in our program is taking our courses, you're picking up all of these different skills that are going to be the stepping stone for being successful later on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grant. I do want to keep space open for people to ask us questions about our program. Aziz, how would you prefer prospective students pose their questions?
So if students can submit their questions through the chat function, and then I will read them out to you. I actually have a couple questions lined up already here for you. For the student representatives, I know there's a prospective students that is asking, how did you manage your academic responsibilities alongside your personal life, and also alongside all these extracurricular activities? So if the student representatives can give us a little bit of an advice how they did that, that would be wonderful.
That's a great question. Who'd like to tackle that one?
I'd be lying if I said that it's not busy. It absolutely is. It depends on how much you take on, but you can make your schedule as busy as you want or as laid back as you want. So two things that I would say is time management is something that you learn in your undergrad, whether you want to or not. It's not something that you have to seek out. It's kind of just a skill that you eventually adapt to throughout your years. And what I found for me was signing up these extracurriculars made that skill a lot easier for me to handle. So scheduling is huge. I have a planner that I use. having people to hold you accountable. Like if you can find good roommates that are really going to make sure that they're supportive of you when you have really, really busy weeks, that's really helpful. And I also really want to stress the relationship that we have with our professors. So we're extremely close with our professors, and we can go to them with almost anything. So if there was ever a week that I had a really, really busy student council week, or I had something going on in my personal life, I was never scared to reach out to my professors and just say, hey, I have this going on, just so you know, I might be a little bit busy, or I might need some more support from you. And I've never had an experience where they've come back at me and said that's not acceptable. They have always been more than willing to help me out with that. So yeah, the two biggest things: time management, you will learn how to manage your time. And second, do not be afraid to talk to your professors, make those relationships, and they will always, always support you and have your back.
I think that was really well said, Ellie. And I would agree with all of what you said. I want to add one small saying that was that's been told to me before, in that Dr. Hanna referred to us all as student leaders. And that's something that I think is really important to remember, that it's really easy and it's fun to take on all these extra opportunities. But you have to remember that you are at King's because you are trying to achieve an undergraduate degree. So you are a student, but more importantly, you're a person before any of that. So you need to remember to take time to yourself and take care of yourself, because you're a person first, a student second, and then you are a student leader. And I think it's really important to remember to prioritize those things so you're not too overwhelmed in what you're taking on.
Thank you, David. Aziz, do you have another question for us?
Yes, I do actually. I have a question directed to Ellie. So we have a student who's planning to do a double major in social justice and peace and political science. She was wondering if you have any important information about the combinations of these programs. Also, that question is asking, what courses she would need to take in first year. So for that answer, I would say, please book your summer academic orientation, and our academic counselors will make sure that you are in the right courses for your first year. As for Ellie, do you have any important information about the combination of social justice and peace and political science?
Yeah, so I'll just reiterate that I think the two programs really complement each other well. So in my first 2 years, I was not in political science. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was really scared of the word science, so I just said, no, thank you. And I focused solely on social justice and peace studies. That's, of course, not how everybody does it. Some people do them concurrently at the same time as each other, and that's absolutely doable. But what I found was really interesting in my scenario was that since I'd had 2 years that were dedicated solely to social justice and peace studies, I had this really great foundation of what it means to be a global citizen and a local citizen, and understanding power structures, and that translates almost seamlessly into the into the political science program. You learn those things on an institutional level, and you learn those things through a policy level, and I just think that they really do complement each other well. And with that being said, you can kind of tailor how you want to see it. So I've always been pretty internationally focused in my studies, but I have a lot of close friends who are in the program doing the same as me, that are more Canadian focused. So you can have opportunities on both sides in both programs. There's really no conflict there, and the professors in both faculties are absolutely incredible. So I have no regrets of doing both of them. I think that they really, really complemented each other, and I think they've set me up really well to pursue my passions in really tangible and practical ways.
Dr. Tieku, would you like to add a bit about the benefits of doing a double major combined with political science?
My sense is that at this stage of your life, we change careers on the average 3 times before you retire. So it's always good to be able to give yourself a wiggle room so that you can maneuver. Today, you may be interested in working for NGO and then making changes at the grassroots level. It's possible that at some point you may be interested in going to government to change policy there. Right? So doing the double major gives you that kind of flexibility. So if you take social justice and peace, it grounds you in terms of understanding the change making at the grassroots level, and that prepares you for that. If you want to decide that you want to go into government, the political science, for example, will help you to do that. So having the double major is an excellent experience for students. That's what I usually recommend. And it does not in any way undermine your ability to go to grad school. The perception in the past was that you have to do a specialization to go to grad school, but it's only just a fiction. But in practice, a number of our students who do really well, exceptionally well, are individuals who do double major and then they decide that, okay, I really want to push maybe my social justice and peace really higher up. or I'm more interested in pushing my poli-sci angle because that's what interests me the most. So having that double major is an extremely important part of it. But I want to highlight one point that I think was made that I think is very important. Ali made a particular point about relationship between professors and students. And this is something that I find it extremely unique when I came here. And it was a cultural shock to me, to be honest, because I came from University of Toronto, big university, and I came and, University of Toronto, I'm not obliged to know the names of everyone. I'm not obliged to make sure that my office space, is always, and actually people actually didn't come to my office hours that much, right? I barely interacted with undergraduate students. Most of my interaction with graduate students and PhD and so on and so forth. So it was a huge cultural shock, but I fascinated and I love it. Like I have good relationship with most of the students. We work together closely, and because we are so close together, in case if you want to make some few bucks, we have projects that are ongoing that you can work with us, right? You get to be paid, you get to know exactly what it means to be a professor, you get to know the way we organize our lives, and also helps you in terms of time management, organizational skills. And when we do write something together, your name already, by the time you finish, your name will be out there. So for example, Ali, David, they have their name at the moment already that will appear in an international journal that everyone can check for themselves because of the incredible work that they've been doing. And this is something that only graduate students can get, the super good graduate student if you go to other universities. So that relationship is amazing. And my sense is that we have, and I can't believe the sort of student that we do get. So I'm hoping that we're going to get another good group and work together to make sure that we take you to where you want to go.
Dr. Tieku, I'm so thankful that you emphasized the role of mentorship in our program because it's such a big part of what we do. And you're right to note that, in fact, all political science faculty have undergraduate students on our research teams. And this is paid employment. It's a really wonderful opportunity for students to learn research skills. In some cases, as Dr. Tieku said, it's an opportunity for publishing. In other cases, it's an opportunity for students to present research at international conferences. In my case, last October, I brought a student with me to the World Trade Organization, and she actually had the chance to present her views, her vision of the future of global trade to the World Trade Organization. So as much as possible, faculty in the Department of Political Science are trying to create these spaces for really unique and impactful opportunities. Aziz, do you have another question for us?
Yes, I do, actually. That's a great segue for the next question. We have a question from a student. He's asking faculty and student representatives about, if they had any, so if the student representatives had to have a part-time job, were they able to also accommodate that with their academics and also extracurriculars?
Jackson, do you want to talk about that one? I know you have a part-time job.
Yeah, so I coach youth baseball as well as work at the beer store on the weekends. And I also play on the Western baseball team along with everything else on campus. So I find the one thing that I really love about university is that when you get your first day of class over with, you have your syllabus for the rest of the semester or the rest of the year, depending on the length of the course. So it really allows you time to sit down and go, these 2 weeks are going to be really busy. Maybe I have to take a weekend off, or maybe I need to restructure what I'm doing that weekend. So it allows you to plan your life ahead, as well as ample time to speak to your professors if you know that you're going to have a difficult weekend coming, to say, maybe can I get a week extension or a couple days extension on that? So there's definitely lots of opportunities to work around your situation to allow you to still succeed in the program.
Thank you. Zainab, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I was actually lucky enough to have a job on campus this year, and just by working on campus, they know you're a student, so they're really, really accommodating. And then also I want to add on to what Jackson said, having the syllabus and also just letting your profs know and your employer know that you kind of have these commitments. I know a few of my profs at the beginning of each semester would ask, like, how many of you guys have part-time jobs? and you would raise your hand and they would know to kind of know when to be accommodating. And also, again, the whole, like, you have really close relationships with these professors. So, I mean, if there's ever a time where you're really stressed out or you're working a lot of hours, they're very, very accommodating. I wouldn't say I had a lot of stress in that zone, just because, again, I had 2 of them kind of really figure it out, but just kind of knowing how much to take on as well. You don't want to have a part-time job and then take on a bunch of extracurriculars and be really stressed out. It's all about time management. So really kind of get to know yourself during these 4 years and realize how much you can take on, because that's ultimately what's important. Someone can have much more and much less and not be able to handle it. So it's just kind of getting to know what you can handle.
Aziz?
Perfect, thank you. So we are at our last question here. We have a question from a student asking about the supports available on campus for students, and also how easy to access these supports, and what kind of support would you recommend for political science students?
Dr. Grant, do you want to take that one?
I can take a little bit of this one, although I think I might recruit Claire to talk a little bit more about some of the supports as well. So obviously we offer a lot of support from faculty when it comes to things like visiting our office hours for extra help to talk about course material. We also have a really good writing center on campus called The Right Place, and often in many of our courses, we make it a requirement as part of the course that you need to visit the right place. And this is where we have experts that help students design essay outlines and essay plans and help them with conducting research so that they can be confident when it comes to writing their research and presenting it in a persuasive way. I'm going to turn that over to Claire, but let's also hear from some students as well about what supports they think have been most valuable for them.
I can jump in. Yeah, I was going to say that The Right Place is a wonderful resource for students to help working on their essays and assignments. Also, I want to mention the library. Our librarians are wonderful at helping students conduct their research, pointing them in the right direction, whether it's looking through the periodicals that we have on campus or doing some online searching in our databases. We also have the accessibility ACSD. And there's mental health and wellness available. They offer workshops for students. There's learning skills workshops. There's learning disability counselors. So if you have a learning disability, you can meet with them and have your studies modified, whether it's extra time on exams, things like that. And then I work in the academic dean's office. So academic counseling is definitely available for students, whether it's specific programmatic counseling, which is what I do, or if it's just general overall counseling. If you're struggling, maybe there was a death in the family or something, traumatic has happened and you need some extensions on essays, our counselors are there to support students. So I'll pass it over to the students to hear from them as well.
Ellie?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk briefly about the actual physical spaces we have on campus as well. I know in first year when I lived in residence, it was kind of hard to find a spot just to yourself. You have a roommate and you share a floor. So I really made use of the reflection room. I don't know if any of you have had time to go to King's campus and see the physical space, but there's a room in our Student Life Center that's dedicated to meditation, yoga, a quiet space. Phones and food aren't allowed in the room. There's a really nice waterfall. So you can go in and just take some time to yourself and journal and do whatever you need to do to kind of decompress. And then also to Claire's point about mental health resources, there is walk-in counseling. So if you're having a really bad day or you just need someone to talk to that you can trust in full confidentiality, then you can go and drop in to a trained counselor and they will walk you through whatever you need and give you some resources and tools and strategies to help try and decompress whatever it is that it is stressing you out. So I personally use the service. I use the reflection room a lot. So those spaces on campus, like actual physical spaces that you can remove yourself from anything else that's stressing you out, are really important. And King's has a couple of those that you can utilize.
Thank you, Ellie. Dr. Tiaku.
Thank you so much. Just I'm going to add a little bit to it. I'm sure that we've talked about research papers and everything. I'm sure some of you are wondering, where am I going to get the ideas from? We have a wonderful library system and everything is 21st century. You can sit at home and download most of the information that you need, right? So I wanted to emphasize that we have a very good library system, both at King's and then main campus. Both of them you have access to the larger Western system. The collections are amazing. It's actually great. So I wanted to emphasize that. So having information to write your papers, I don't think you're going to struggle. But the other small thing I wanted to add is that in case you want to participate in experiential learning, this is very unique at King's, that they have actually a money set aside for experiential learning purposes. So it's not just you're going to pay everything from your pocket, but they have money set aside, right? When I was U of T, if I want to take student anywhere else, I have to apply and compete before I can get the money to subsidize it. And at King's, they have the money there, and it's just only filling a form. That's all that you need to do. Just fill the form, and you get the money, and it's a good money too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to emphasize what Dr. Tieku said, because all of us all the students here have been on experiential learning trips, but I think I can only speak to myself. I wouldn't have been able to take those experiential learning trips without the kind of scholarships that King's offers. And they do automatically, every single King's student gets $2,000 towards experiential learning trips. So I've went to 2, so each time I've applied for the 1,000, and it's really, really helpful. I think that a lot of students wouldn't be able to go on these trips without it. And yeah, it's incredible. I mean, King's, and then even beyond that, I can apply to more scholarships. And kind of for my first one, when I went to Arizona, it was the Borderlands trip, and I got almost all of it covered by scholarships. So money's not really an issue when it comes to King's, because they're there to support you.
So if there's one takeaway, I think, from this thread, is that King's is a very inclusive space. And we try and make all of these opportunities that we've talked about today accessible to all of our students. Aziz, do you have something to add?
Perfect, thank you. I always, whenever I attend a session for political science, I always feel like I want to go back to school and do another degree. So you might see me next year in your classes, but so far we don't have any more questions. So I'm going to turn it back to you to see if you have any final thoughts or any words of advice for our future students.
Okay. Would anyone, I'd invite anyone who'd like to offer some rounding out comments. We're almost at the end of our time. Is there some takeaway that you would like to leave our prospective students with? Jackson, thank you.
Yeah, the one thing that I think my biggest takeaway from the past 2 years that I've only been at King's for 2 years is the importance of the small class sizes, not only to get to know your professors and not only for future reference letters, but it really creates a close friend group, and you really get to know your classmates, and hopefully one day they'll be your work colleagues somewhere in the world. And they're invaluable resources that you'll never forget, and it's really important, and it's something you don't get elsewhere.
Thank you, Jackson. David?
Yeah, I just want to say something quickly, just to touch on a point that Claire made earlier about how at King's, your first year will be very general in nature. And I think that's something that's really important, because I remember going into university being so just terrified with all this language of majors and minors and specializations, and I really didn't know what any of it meant. And that was really stressful for me. But then going through when I did my summer academic orientation, I kind of took political science just because it seemed like something kind of interesting, but my intention was to major in psychology. And throughout my degree, I've changed my major and minor, my degree, until I finally decided that I wanted to do an honor specialization in political science. And I think the takeaway there is that this is a journey, and it is so okay if you're sitting on this call thinking, yeah, political science seems interesting, but I'm not sure if it's for me. I would so encourage you to, at the very least, take the first year course. And if it's not for you, you never have to take another course in it again, but it just might turn out that it ends up being one of the most amazing courses you take in your first year.
Thank you. Zainab, do you have a takeaway?
Yeah, kind of just adding on to what David said, I took the first year political science course and then was still kind of unsure of what I wanted to do and didn't actually return to it until my third year. I've maybe switched my major 4 times, but I'm still kind of on the right track, and I'm really, really passionate about what I'm doing now. And so, yeah, your journey is not maybe what you think it might look like, but in the end, you get there with the support of your peers and your profs. So definitely don't be afraid to kind of go into it being like, I don't really know what I'm doing, because you'll get there and it'll be great.
Ellie, last words?
Sure. Just from the flip side of Jackson, him being in second year and now David and I being complete, it only gets better. So I absolutely love my first year. I love my second year even more. And by the end of my fourth year, you can ask any of the other students on this call, very close friends of mine, that I do not want to leave King's. I have absolutely loved my time. Just King's as a community in general, I've never felt more welcomed in a space before. And it's always scary to move on to the next thing, but I am so confident that they've set me up to do the absolute best that I can moving forward. And if you're lucky enough to have a similar experience to me, and I'm sure the other students on this call, it's a really hard place to say goodbye to, which I think is a blessing. So I can't recommend it enough. Anyone I talk to, I tell them to go to King's. I have friends who have gone to other universities from high school, and when I talk about my experience, they're jealous because of how much I've gotten out of this. So if you're on the fence, if you're not sure, do it. I didn't regret it. I don't know anybody who has ever regretted it. It's absolutely incredible and really, really hard to say goodbye to.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Wow, I don't know what more can be said, except that we're excited. We're ready to greet you in September. I work with a tremendous group of gifted educators, and we have an amazing lineup for you for 2020, 2021. David has asked, he has a great idea. He's wondered if we could end the call with a video that Communications has put together for us to give you a glimmer of what the experiential learning opportunities look like at King's. And I think that's a superb way to end, David. So I'm going to share my screen, and you'll have the chance to see some of the students on this call featured in this video. So bear with me for 1 second.
King's and poli-sci has changed my life. It truly has.
Political science has definitely shaped my worldview and given me the tools required to analyze things in a critical manner. But at the same time, it's allowed me to develop my compassion about world issues.
For this experiential learning, this is to give students not only academic knowledge, but to ground them.
So this is my third experiential learning trip with King's, and every single one has really formed who I am and where I want to go with my career.
Political science at King's is the greatest experience of my life. I'm so happy that I chose this program.
It really showed me the importance of having a political science degree and how to be a really well-educated global citizen.
This is something I'd like to try and do with my life. I wouldn't have done any other program, and I wouldn't have done it anywhere else.
If anything, the political science program has brought out the leader in me I never knew existed.
Okay, everyone. I think that's a fine note to conclude our session. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do reach out if you have any questions. We're all available to you. Aziz, I think you will help students be in touch with us. Is that right? You'll circulate email addresses?
Absolutely. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email us at kings@uwo.ca, and I will make sure to forward your email to the person your questions addressed to.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Have a wonderful day.